The next session happening here in the plenary is, we're continuing the consumer track after a very power-packed session that you all experienced. In the session before, we experienced the macro view in the consumer segment, and the following session will now explore the market innovations that are happening in the consumer segment in India. While we are seeing e-tail, e-commerce, but there are some game-changing breakthrough innovations happening in the brick-and-mortar format of this business, and that's what the next session is going to be. But before I introduce the moderator and chair, I would like to thank our sponsors. Would request you to join me in thanking our sponsors: KPMG, our principal partner; UKTI, our country partner; Rediff.com, the silver partner; and Nishit Desai Associates, our knowledge partners. Big round of applause for our sponsors, ladies and gentlemen. And now inviting on the stage the chair for the next session, consumer panel. The gentleman is a TiE Charter member and a veteran in the consumer space. He's been, he brings on board 37 plus years of experience and consumer insights on point of sale and other such retail aspects. I would request Mr. Ajay Agrawal from Clisma to join me on stage and introduce the other panelists. Good mic.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I thought the last session was very energetic. You guys will still be awake, huh? So let me now welcome my participants with me in this panel: Mr. Mahesh Murthy from Mahesh Shetty from Mahesh Tutorials, Mr. Narayanan from Blue Foods, and Shubho from New Delhi. Shubho is here.
There are Q&A, people can SMS questions to you.
Yeah. So, are we waiting for Shubho? So, market innovation. Market innovation is something which is happening in India for a very long time. If you see things like Gadi, somebody selling vegetables or anything on the Gadi is actually a market innovation, if you see in real sense. Mobile phone repair is actually a market innovation in India. It doesn't happen in many other countries. So if you see small things like this, India has been a destination for market innovations right from ages. And in a place like this where the entrepreneurs are sitting there, entrepreneurs are basically nothing but innovation. They actually create ideas, innovative ideas, and take them to the market, and that is what is ultimately make them successful. I just give you a small example. My children told me some time ago, there's a restaurant which came up near our house in Pune, and it was like any other normal restaurant, but this guy wanted to become successful than any other restaurant. So he identified a market of home delivery to the students living in nearby area, because this was an education hub where a lot of students were living in flats, sharing flats together. Shubha Mukherjee, please come. Subha Sen Gupta, sorry. So this guy, he thought of an idea of creating a promotion of his restaurant by giving his phone number and saying, give us a missed call at this number, and we will call you back and we will deliver what you need. So that concept alone became most successful with the students, because the students never had a charge on their mobile phone, and they never wanted to call a restaurant and spend their money in ordering a food. So and it became very successful restaurant within a very short time, and this was, I thought, is a wonderful innovation in marketing. So coming forward, let me just give 2 minutes each to my fellow panelists on telling you what they do, what they are all about, and once they finish, then I'll just tell you what Clisma do, and then we'll take on our discussion forward. Shubha Sen Gupta, please. You have to pick up a mic from there.
Hi, I'm Shubho. Very happy to be here. Can you hear me at the back?
Actually, it's become very convenient for us now. We have to only look at this side because there is nobody in the back side. Yes. Change mic.
Want to try this?
Try this. Try this, Shubho.
Hello. Thank you. So, very happy to be here with, entrepreneurs and would-be entrepreneurs. And my introduction is very quick, just 2 lines. So I'm basically an analog guy in a digital world. You can make out by my rapidly graying hair. So I started off in advertising many years back in the 90s. And at some point I got very bored with, the 30-second commercial and the 20-second radio spot and the 200cc print ad, etc. And because there was something interesting happening, this giant gorilla in the room, as they call it, digital. So I moved to digital about 6-7 years back, and I've worked both on the advertising side and the client side, and currently I'm a consultant, a wannabe consultant. I work with brands directly, helping them set up digital systems. And a lot of the work that I do is also for non-profit, maybe 30-40%, for 2 reasons. One is I think they're genuinely doing something great, and secondly, the interesting tech innovations seem to be happening at a BOP level, or cream of BOP, whatever you call it. So that's what I do for a living, basically. And we were just having a chat, in the lounge a little while ago. And great case studies which you will hear, maybe small, maybe not so much scale, but I think they're the way, Because digital, it's a shiny new thing for a lot of people, things like Facebook, social media. While they are buzzwords, what they actually do in terms of, say, ROI is not really proved in a lot of cases. Okay. Some sectors, for example, banking or, automobile or restaurants, which you'll hear about, seem to be doing well. But most of it, let's say about 90%, seem to be in it just because it's there, right? So I'll give you a small example. The largest Facebook page in the country, fan page in the country, it's got about 9 million or 10 million people, I think, which is a huge number. So I was in a conference like this, a similar conference, where I asked, how many of you are on that page? So almost all hands went up. Okay. And then I asked, how many of you actually use this product? 3 hands went up, right? So just to illustrate, what is happening in the social media space. However, not to take away the, people doing interesting work. And by interesting, I mean, for me, interesting is something that can be measured, something that has numbers, something that has metrics. So it doesn't matter what category it is, right? And that's the large opportunity, because you have, I think, about 127 million people with an internet connection today, out of which a majority, by the way, since the middle of this year, are accessing internet through mobile, which is more than desktop, PC or laptop, whatever you call it. So what are the opportunities out here, especially for entrepreneurs like you, is, something you might be very interested in, especially entrepreneurs who have some kind of linkage to technology. And I think most of you would in some way or the other, even if, you'll hear my friend talk about how they use an iPad for, customer feedback. Okay. So that's it, basically, and as we move on, yeah.
Ryan. So Narayan.
Hi, good afternoon, all of you. Really happy to be in the midst of all of young, bubbling minds. Just to give you a brief background about myself, I'm not an entrepreneur in the true sense. Started my journey, did the traditional college, engineering, MBA, blah, blah, the usual stuff. For about 20 to almost 25 years, I've been in the corporate world, held steady jobs in the sense that gone through the traditional route of usually sales, marketing, operations, etc. there. But one thing for me was that over always the entire thing, I'm a foodie. So almost for about 25 years, I have been associated with the food industry. And so that sort of led me one passion to the other, to the other. I was earlier with Unilever, then after that with a company called McCain Foods, which today many of you would be aware of, the potato guys. And then over the last more than a year or so, I've been associated with this company called Blue Foods, Pan India Foods, which I'm not sure many of you would have heard of. But has anybody heard of Pan India Foods? I guess that goes to show in terms of how many of you really go through the bills that is served to you. How many of you have heard of restaurants like Copper Chimney, Spaghetti Kitchen, Gelato, Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf? So I see a lot more. So we are known by the brands that we handle. We run this chain of restaurants across India today in about 6-7 cities that we operate, 150 odd fine dining restaurants that we run across and specialty ice cream parlors that we run across. So that's my experience. All in all, a lot of my experience has been in the area of food, in the area of consumers, and in all the assignments that I've done, I think that's how I've tried to bring in some entrepreneurial streak and trying to do something different, something forward-looking. And let me share with you, I've had my share of huge successes and huge failures as well. So I think that's where one sort of learns and moves forward. And at this point in time, I'm the CEO for this business where we run these chain of restaurants. So I think once Mahesh does his introduction, then we will go forward in sharing our experiences. Thanks a lot.
Mahesh, please.
Good evening, all of you. First of all, I'd like to thank Thai Summit to give this opportunity to speak to a beautiful audience here. Mahesh Tutorials is the brand with which we work. Started in the year 1984. Yes, in a single classroom with hardly 10,000 rupees in my pocket. Today, listed at BSE NSE with a 500 crore market cap. The journey was beautiful. It's thanks to all the parents who believed in us. Started with 8th, 9th, 10th. Now we have almost the entire bouquet, right from training students for IIT entrance, to training students for CAT and CMAT, to training students for CA, entrance, inter, as well as final. Yes, it has been different because we could scale up, which was not possible for others, because I was beyond being a teacher. If I would be a teacher, maybe I would be still in the classroom. The day I understood that I have to be beyond a teacher, I came out of the classroom and made this big. We have 200 centers and more than 2,500 people working for the company and 75,000 students in the year 12-13. That's my bit. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mahesh. Friends, I just wanted to tell you what I do. I run a small venture called Klizma.in. I have been associated with the retail industry since 1993, and I always felt, and I hope Nagesh is not listening to me, that the modern retail in India does not pay any attention towards the consumers, and the consumer is very well neglected in the modern retail today. So I always wanted to do something which is very consumer centric, which is customer centric, and which can deliver the desired experience to the modern consumer. So I started this venture with the objective of delivering the world-class shopping experiences to the consumers. Now the idea was we wanted to be consumer driven and we didn't want to be inventory driven. So we said, now how do we get the consumers first if we want to be consumer driven? So we thought of a strategy of engaging with the enterprises. So we first engage with the enterprises, and largely we are focusing on IT enterprises right now. And once we engage with an IT enterprise, then we sit on the intranet of these companies, and the employees of these companies, they become a member of my platform. And then we generate demand with from these employees, and we aggregate demand across all the employees, across all the enterprises, and we service that demand through our merchant partners like Blue Foods or any other merchants who are selling their products. So today we service almost 70 plus enterprises across the country in 6 cities. And we have an employee base of around 350,000 plus. And we make them buy anything starting from a cinema ticket to an automobile or to a flat. We just recently added real estate as a category on our platform. So we whatever they need, we aggregate and we service it through. So that's what Klisma.in do. We are 14 months operations, and this will be our first financial year. We'll be completing in this March, and hopefully we'll close this financial year profitably. So that's what it's all 4 enterprises are all about. What we have decided is we discussed this event. We are dividing this whole session into 2 broad sections. And the first section will focus on that how market innovation has been applied in marketing new product or services or old product or services into new markets or old markets. It's a very interesting metrics. If you see, there are a lot of traditional products and services in the market which are now trying to address new markets, or there are a lot of new products which are coming in. Many of you are coming out with new ideas and new products and new services which you would like to address in the old market, or you create new markets. So we would like to take perspective of our fellow panelists in this space. Maybe we'll start with Mr. Narayanan, where I saw that they have so many brands, and each brand caters to different market segment or different consumer segment. So what led you to build these brands one after the other, and how are you basically integrating these brands with the marketplace?
Yeah, I think I had to go back a bit in terms of the journey. Very clearly, let's start again here with the consumer. Eating out is something all of us, we have seen it, I mean ourselves personally experienced it over the last few years. It's been steadily going up. And there are a variety of reasons. It's the young audience, to our exposure to media, to our travels abroad, etc., etc. So there are a lot of, plus the GDP growing, etc. So it gives us an opportunity to go out and eat. So starting from there, and you really look back and see what is it that consumers go out and eat. They don't eat the same food that they eat at home. Though all of us still yearn to go back home and eat Ghar Ka Khana, but what is it that you end up eating? So starting from there, if you see very clearly, whether it is from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, all the research that we have done very clearly shows that your North Indian food is one of the main cuisines that really get eaten out, number one. The second is, I would call, the so-called Chinese, or the Chinese Indian, whatever you may end up calling it, which is available, not available outside the shores of India. And then third comes this whole range of what I would say Italian, etc. So these are the 3 main cuisines which are really there. So keeping that in mind is when the option is, when you're running a whole chain or a restaurant business, is that do you run any one format, or can you run a whole series of formats? So that's when we decided that yes, when you're going out and eating, there is a whole range of things which a consumer ends up eating. And when you look into go a step behind each of these restaurants, and Indian food is cooked very differently from a Chinese versus this one. So you need a completely different back-end chain. So the way we sort of decided is that yes, we will focus on these brands as far as the front end is concerned. So Copper Chimney represents our North Indian food, what do you call, it's a noodle bar for the Chinese format or the Southeast Asian, Spaghetti Kitchen for the Italian, and so on. So, and like this, we've sort of divided the whole thing, and we said we'll focus on it and build a franchise on that. But when it comes to the back end, we try and do chefs are different, of course, because at the end of the day, the cuisine expertise that comes very differently. But there are certain functions which then become common, which is the way we sort of operate, and then we've done this whole structuring. So for instance, a simple thing like operations, opening the restaurant on time, being neat and clean, closing it on time, collection of cash, billing system, taxation, they are all running common across. The whole purchase system, we integrate across all formats, together it's purchased together. So this way, we have the mix and match approach, we are able to do this. So as a result, we build cuisine expertise through chefs. We also do a supply chain expertise through the whole other back-end services and services that we have. Along with this also comes in what we would call today is the young audience which is there, which requires a wide range. Can you provide all of that, not to that highest level in terms of cuisine expertise, but still is there. So that's what, say, a thing like Bombay Blue is. which is an all-day dining restaurant, 11 to 11, you get a chole bhature, you get a pizza, you get a nacho, you get Mexican, the whole range is available of all this from the back end. So really starting from the consumer, what he or she wants, you build the front end on that, and then try and see as to how, as a corporate, you can provide the back end and the service to this whole thing. So that's how the thought, the genesis of this whole thing is. And whenever we get into a new city, we sort of try and see how we can leverage this whole expertise together and build this whole thing together. So along with that, since we have this whole range of things, we also run this whole coffee shops called Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. There are these ice cream parlors, etc. which is there. So tomorrow again, when we go in to a new city or we are discussing with a new landlord, we today can go become a one-stop solution provider to a mall. The mall also is looking at different cuisines. So we as a corporate are able to provide the entire basket under one roof. So it's really starting from the consumer, embedded over there, how do we go about doing it? So within that we do a lot of small minor things in terms of formats, which we will come to later. But this is where really in terms of starting from there, how we sort of build and differentiate.
I wanted you to specifically tell us about your Bombay Blue concept.
Right.
It's not just a multi-cuisine restaurant, but what in the today's context, in the today new age concept context.
Sure. See, one thing very clearly is that food is something all of us associate very closely with. Typically it is said that if you catch 10 people on the road and ask them what do you want to do, 6 of them will say, I want to open a restaurant. So that's something I think all of us have, it's a cultural in us. So how do you sort of engage the customer better in a restaurant? So this is something came through in all our insight studies with customers. The moment you start engaging better, you already done the job of selling. So that's when we came up with this concept. We have 2 or 3 concepts running in different formats and different ways. To give you an example, as he suggested, say on Bombay Blue. So we have this concept called what is called make your own pizza. So over there, though a waiter comes and engages with you, there it's end up your choice. You choose the base, you choose the sauces, you choose, there are 20 toppings, you choose what of it. So this is a format which is again appeals to the youngsters. So 4, 5, 6 of them come together, they engage with each other, they talk, they discuss, they fight. So then this whole engagement happens. So as a result of which, what we are doing is that we are facilitating the whole process of what the consumer wants. At the same time, we have the back end to deliver that to the consumer at the restaurant. And having done this whole thing, how do we take it to the next level? So over here, being again a youthful audience, many of them are on Facebook, many of them are on Twitter, the whole range of social media, this one. So they start photographing the whole thing. They sort of engaging, we engage with our beverage partners like Pepsi, etc. They run a lot of promotions, contests. So as a result, what happens is that this whole thing, along with the chef, they co-create the product, they consume it, and at the same time, they only publicize it. So they take the photographs of it along with the group, they share it on this one. If they don't like it, they blast us. And I think fine, it's good for us. We get feedback on what is right, what we are doing wrong. So this way we are able to sort of engage with the customer, co-create the product for the customer, and also publicize the product. I think this is a unique way of trying to engage. So it's not just yet another restaurant wherein there's a big menu, you end up serving A, B, C, D, E out of it. But you sort of do this whole thing together in conjunction with the consumer. So I think that's where we're trying to differentiate and sort of move forward. You can't do the whole menu this way because there are maybe out of an audience of 100, 10, 20, 30 who would like to do this. So for them this is available. For the rest, there's a standard menu also available. So you need to sort of mix and match and play along with it.
Mahesh, you entered this business when this market was dominated by Agarwal classes. And I don't think you had any idea at that time that Agarwal classes will close down. So what made you enter this market? What did you see at that point of time and pitching in against such a tough competitor in the marketplace?
First of all, we were not competing Agarwals when I started.
Okay.
Because we started with the school section, that is 8th, 9th and 10th. So we were not competing against him. It was only later in the year 2000 when we gathered a lot of students, around 2,000-3,000 students at the 10th level. We scaled it up, we did a forward integration and we started 11th and 12th science. And then we started in the year 2003 commerce, training students to be employable graduates as well as preparing them for CA.
So what are the techniques you used in the market to enter these new markets or to create these new products?
First of all, I chose business heads. As I started the science business, I picked up guys of the industry who have been doing very well, who had their small enterprise. I told them, let's make big. They were locally there. They didn't know how to scale up. I told, I will do that for you, okay, but join it. So it's more amalgamation of all small coaching class owners whom I got together under one brand called Mahesh Tutorials. And that's how we scaled up across. So that's been the technique, that's been the innovation. Because I alone doing everything is not possible, you need team. So picked up a CA classes which was doing very well locally in Mulund. I told him, I will take you across India. So he was excited. He told, okay, what I have to do? I told you have to just be there and get teachers, train them. So that's how we have Center of Excellence for each and every vertical. So Center of Excellence is the key where continuous training happens. Roughly in a year, a teacher is expected to do 200 hours of workshop, which is not heard of in any school or any college across the country. That's how we have been different.
And will you tell us something about your Karnataka model, which you were just talking, which is very
Yes.
interesting there?
When we entered Karnataka, what we saw, we actually failed with the coaching class model. We were training students for KCET. KCET is supposed to be engineering and medical entrance for students into the Karnataka state engineering and medical colleges. And what we saw was the coaching classes model was not doing well there. So we told, why not tie up with the colleges? So we entered a college and we told that we would like to train your students so that they get qualified for engineering and medical colleges. They told, who are you? We told, we are a very big brand of Mumbai. They told, sorry, we want some local guys to come up with. So we told, why not start our own college? So we started a college there under a trust and we trained those students for engineering and medicine. And seeing that performance across Karnataka, we started getting, people welcoming us, telling that we heard that you are interested in coaching students for engineering and medical. Today we have 10 colleges in Karnataka where we run the colleges for them. In Tumkur we took a college which had only 10 students and he was not doing well. So we told, we'll get business for you. And today in that college, it's 1 year old, we have 200 students studying in 11th, all geared up to be engineers and doctors. We took one college in Hubli, we have 170 students there. We took one college in Udupi, we have around 250 students. That's how we now are in Mysore, we are in Belgaum, we are there across Karnataka with in 10 districts.
Yeah, I think that's a very good example of getting into old market with a new product and a new concept. And
Because the world is moving into professionalism. It's
do you have
not
any
only-
other examples like this which enabled you to spread yourself?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any other examples in which helped you to take your business into new directions?
In the sense?
New territories or new classes which you started with new concepts?
So actually, looking at the whole scenario, we have been always innovative. In Bombay also now we will be having 4 colleges. We took one college management contract, training students to be employable graduates. What happens to those ordinary guys? Those who are just going to be BCom, they are really lost. Everybody caters to IITians, everybody caters to engineering graduates, doctors. But what about those huge amount of kids who are lost, who are average? So that's where we picked up a college in Kurla, Churnapatti, and now what we are doing is we are training them to be employable on every front, right from coaching in academic, developing their communication skills, teaching them social projects, that how overall personality has to be groomed. And believe me, in 6 months, there's a whole turnaround there. We have around 500 students there as well. At the same time, we have seen that kids who go to school, I will just tell you, you'll be shocked to know that your child goes to school for 7 hours, but his curriculum, academic curriculum, is just 1.5 hours. Then why does he sit in school for 7 hours? That's a question which is really going on in my mind. Because a school teacher is only equipped to train him in academics. Beyond that, she is not trained to teach him the social aspect of society. He is not trained enough to teach the child the sports as well as to teach the child the communication skills. Then what does the child do? He learns with his peers, no doubt. Maybe the environment is good. But there are no experts. That's where maybe in another 5 years you'll be seeing MT Educare bringing a revolution. Because really we don't need a school for a child. What we need for a child is Ramakant Achrekar to create a Sachin Tendulkar. So there are a lot of cricket academies. But our child goes to school from 7 to 1:30, 2, 3. And what happens to him? He's tired. Can he be a cricketer? Okay, you want to make him a leader of the country. Then there is a Chetan Bhagat there. There is a Santosh Nair. There is a Shiv Khera. Can he train our child? Rather give him your child. And we have great political leaders in this country. So your child needs just 1.5 hours of training in academics. So that's where MT is going to move into the next world, where we'll have virtual schools, which we are looking at in another 5 years. But till then, we have to bring a lot of experts, as I've been doing always, bringing in experts and creating virtual school. So your child, for example, wants to play cricket. So he goes and joins the Dilip Vengsarkar's cricket academy, right from 7 o'clock till 10:30, 11. He really learns cricket. He comes home, he has his lunch. Then from 12 to 1:30, the virtual teacher enters his home through video conferencing, through internet. And after that, in the afternoon, maybe around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, he goes for communication skills. He joins a Pearl Padamsi's class, or maybe a Santosh Nair's class, or maybe some other class, where he learns and develops his leadership skills. He learns how to talk, how to behave, what is ethics. This is not all taught in our schools. And we need a revolution. And that's where we have been innovative all the time. And we'll be continuing doing that. Thank you very much.
Shubho, your experience of working with FMCG companies like Coca-Cola and all, you've come across strategies, marketing strategies, which you think were effective in those days or effective in today's times?
See, what we used to do, and I've worked across the spectrum for FMCGs, for non-profits, etc. Whether it's, you know, the world's largest brand, or if it's a startup with 3 people in a garage. Today in 2013, the huge advantage we have is listening, okay, which was not there 10 years back or 15 years back. So what I would encourage all entrepreneurs in this room to do is, you know, just very basic free listening tools, because there are 127 million people on the internet in India. There are, you know, many people, I think 800 something on mobile. And to an extent, you can listen, you can hear what they are talking about. If you're on the restaurant business, you can listen to what people are talking about food. Not in Delhi, but in Mumbai. This part of Mumbai. I'm not from Mumbai, so I'm slightly. So you can listen to conversations online, conversations not just about your brand, but your sector. So if you're in the, say, photography business, you can listen to what people are talking about travel. Are they going to Goa? Are they going to Manali? Are they backpackers? Are they, you know, going to Singapore shopping malls? So you can pick up a lot of conversation. You know, that's the first thing that you can do. And then formulate, you know, figure out need gaps amongst the conversations that you're listening to. And these are free tools, you know, like Google Alerts, for example. Any of you in the room subscribe to Google Alerts? This is fantastic. Bombay is leading the way as usual. Any of you subscribe to Social Mention? Okay, 1, 2, 3, yeah. Okay, so, you know, free tools like these, Google Trends, you can find out, and, you know, before you jump into Facebook or, you know, start a Twitter account or anything, just listen to what people are talking about your category. Whether you're an NGO or an FMCG or whatever it is, and you'll get fantastic insights out there. I'll give you an example, a small example. This is a cola brand that I used to work on. Okay, so typically what you do is spend a lot of money on television. Okay. 50 lakhs, 60 lakhs to just make that TVC, another 2 crores to promote it across different channels. And this promotion was happening around the IPL last year. What we figured out, the insight here was people watch TV, but they talk about the match on Twitter. They say nice things about Ravi Shastri and, other people. So that was the simple insight, right? So we didn't do any TV. All we did was, create a hashtag, if you're familiar with Twitter hashtags, okay, with the name of the brand, not the name of the brand, something close, okay. So we picked up all conversations, funny conversations on Twitter around, in that area. Okay, that's it. And yes, there was some gratification. There was a TV or something like that, nothing expensive. But imagine the money that was saved by just plugging into one simple insight, which is people watch TV, but they, type on Twitter. So, not to deviate, the one point that I want to make is, you should listen to what your consumer is talking about before you do anything else. You will get all insights or strategy, whatever big fancy words you call it, from just listening to your consumer who's already there, and you don't need to spend a paisa to listen to what he's talking about.
That reminds me of a nice incident we had on Klizma. We had a big demand from our customers about giving them a food service, that most of our members wanted to use Klizma for ordering their daily requirements of fruits, vegetables, grocery. So we tied up with a large modern retail brand in India, and we started a pilot in Pune. 2 weeks later, we had to abandon it because it didn't work. Then we moved on to another brand, modern retail brand, because that's the way we work. We work with a merchant partner. That also failed. Then we found somebody locally in Pune, and that also was a big disaster. So those 7-8 weeks of experimentation with this whole model, we figured out that the customers, our members, were using our platform for buying these products. They were not happy, but parallelly they were buying a lot of other things from our platform because they were coming for food. So we realized that food is a very important category for us. We can't leave it. So then we decided that we will do it ourselves, because it's so important. If no merchant is good enough to service this, we will handle it ourselves, because it's an important category for us. So now, before we launched our own service, we did a little survey, and we said we will do only with one, because we were very scared. We didn't want to make the same mistake what other merchants did. So we selected one product, which is mango, and this was the month of April, which was very, very strategic for mango. So we did a survey about mango with our customers. Like Shubha was saying, listen to your customers. And we found out most of the IT employees, they love mango, but they can't buy mango for various reasons. Because the mango is available in a 2 dozen box, which is too much for them to buy. The mango, they don't know how to select a good quality mango. They don't know what is the right price. So we found a solution, and we launched a mango subscription scheme. We said, give us 5,000 rupees and you will get 1 dozen mangoes for rest of the season to your house delivered, house or office. Or give us 3,000 rupees, you get 6 mangoes delivered to your house every week. And you choose which day of the week you want these mangoes to be delivered. And you will not believe, in the first 2 weeks, we sold 14 lakhs worth of subscriptions. Just like that. And it was such a big hit because we did something which our members wanted. So we created a new product, which is 6 mango pack and a 1 dozen mango pack, which was not existing in the market. And we delivered mangoes to them in such a manner, those 1 dozen mangoes were such, they were not of equal ripening condition. They were all of different ripening level, so that they can last for 1 week. So when we took this care for them, they realized that the mango lasts for 1 week, the box lasted 1 week beautifully. And then we got under pressure saying that we want to buy mangoes separately because their mangoes are so good, to gift it to our family and friends. So then we had to open our mango sale per box also. So these are some of the things which we learned from our customers, as he suggested, and which were very successful. And I'm sure you will, in your own businesses, when you look at your customers closely, you will find a lot of solutions which you can align with the needs of the consumers. In fact, I must give you one more example. Now today we service the whole range of fruit and vegetable and grocery after 7 months. And we realized that at certain point our number of orders every day, they became stable. They stopped growing. And then what we did, we went back to our customers. And we called some of our regular customers who have bought more than twice or thrice from us. And we asked them, why have you stopped buying? Did we do anything wrong? There was a quality issue, service issue, what? They said, no, everything was fine. We forgot about it. Because they have a habit of buying from an alternate source. So they say, we forgot about it. Now, we don't want to spam them every day by sending an email. So we said, we have to find a solution for this now. People are genuinely, they want to use our service, but they keep forgetting about it. So we found somebody in our team gave a suggestion, let's sell one product every day at 1 rupee. Just as a surprise. Something, today potato is 1 rupee, tomorrow tomato is 1 rupee, day after tomorrow grapes is for 1 rupee. One product at 1 rupee, which will cover the loss in the 250 rupees basket very easily. It's like giving 5% discount. The moment we launched that, our sale went up by 3 times. Within 1 week, the number of tickets went up 3 times. But again, after 3 weeks, it started dropping. And now again, there was a challenge how to remind them. So then again, somebody gave a solution saying, let's go back to these customers and ask them to sign up for a price change intimation. That whenever there is a price change on Klizma, for any product, I should be intimated. So we built this model where, so then what happens now, every day when any item is 1 rupee, automatically the SMS goes to the customers. Today this is so and so. No, it's not an email, and with that our orders have started growing again. So these are some of the insights I'm sharing with you, which is not something which we saw anywhere else, but we learned these lessons from our own customers, and we found out these solutions to deal with this whole issue, and which is working pretty well. Now, we'll now move on to the digital space, where today a lot of digital social media talk happens. And let's see how digital space or social media is helping us in doing market innovation. Now, let me go back to Mr. Narayanan. He was giving us some very beautiful examples how they have experimented with the digital media, and which I thought was very, very eye-opener for all of us.
Thanks a lot. See, again, going back to the consumer, listening, etc., it's all there. And many a times, what is it of the consumer that you listen and how you implement it is also a challenge that we as an entrepreneur or as a marketeer end up facing. Just to share again, we are in the restaurant business, we sell food. And as all of us do, we end up first eating with our eyes, our nose, and then only with our mouth. So really, anywhere you show appetizing food, etc., it's very attractive. So that's when it came up, this one, when we threw an idea, did some traditional market research, threw the idea at consumers. If you are able to, along with the menu card, able to show very attractive food shots of what the dish is, give some background on what the dish is, etc., people are very happy about it. So what we did was, we went back to the drawing board, we did the whole menu on an iPad. And literally in terms of each of the dish, explained where it is origin from, how it is done, what are the ingredients, very appetizing food shot, etc., etc. And all of us thought brilliant. We shared it with some consumers. They said fabulous stuff. But when we went back to a restaurant situation and we removed the menu card and gave the iPad, complete blank. People are not ready for it. People are not used to it. And after the first 10 of them itself, we knew we were sitting against a wall. So hence, clearly, that is something I think all of us, again, it's a case of human mind, human conditioning, which we've gone through over the years, that yes, this is the way we need to, this one, a menu card has to be whatever, so many sheets of paper, A, B, C, D classification. So I think that's sort of ingrained in the mind. So I said, okay, then, how do we do, what do we do? So that's when we came up with the thought of, yes, there is this feedback mechanism which is there. Today, what happens when you go to any restaurant, at the end of the day, end of the meal, you get a sheet of paper with something you scribble upon, and 9 out of 10 times, if something is bad, it never reaches us back at the office, head office or restaurant head or whoever it is. It gets torn and thrown into the dustbin. So then they said there was a germ of an idea. why not we put the whole feedback mechanism onto the iPad? So it created a very simple sheet in terms of 2 lines. How was the food, quality of food, ambience, service, 3-4 questions, few basic questions about what they like, what they didn't like, took their telephone number, email ID, whatever was there, and that was there. And then through technology, we sort of built in an app saying that if it is below a threshold level, it sort of goes right up to all of us in the system, right up to me. As a CEO, I get. I mean, so for instance, you go there, you found the soup cold or soup, something very salty or it was too noisy. If the comment is there, it comes right up to me. So then what happens is we sort of put in a system down the line. If there's any going below threshold limit, the restaurant manager, the general manager has to get back to the customer, figure out what went wrong or right, and try and see how it can be addressed. Now, let me tell you, this system has worked so beautifully now. We on an every week, I am getting feedback in terms of something goes wrong, we are immediately able to crack down on that and figure out something is going wrong in a particular restaurant because we operate all across the country. So in about 7 cities, we have done this in 14 restaurants and we've started getting this feedback in. So one is of course the whole area of what we collect feedback, how we do with it is there, but more is in terms of immediate redressal of complaint or an issue. That gets done immediately. So that is something which is there. Once in a while, some of the complaints, few of them, I just call up the customer directly. Now, that gives a very positive impact to the customer as well. Oh, I just ate, I read a complaint and the CEO of the company is calling me. So it gives you, it keeps our people on the toes and at the same time, also the customer feels happy and also we're seeing that we are able to maintain service levels, quality levels, which is there. In addition to all of this, what I am also quietly doing is about almost 5 to 10,000 a database of customers who have actually dined in my restaurant. I am not buying database from anywhere. I have that database which keeps on accumulating in my central servers. So that's something we continuously build on. So tomorrow when we run any other promotion, any other activity, or if now we have started collecting birth dates or any anniversary special dates, etc., we invite them over, call them over. So we are able to this one. Tomorrow we are able to do more analytics on it. Those who bought a certain type of dishes, something new which is there, we are able to go back. So this is the way we are sort of built in. So it's not very, customer told us very clearly, you show us food, attractive food, we will buy. We did that all on the solution, it didn't go, it didn't hold water, we failed. But we sort of are able to move that whole thing technologically into a different platform and that's something that's giving us results. Maybe this whole issue of a menu card thing may come up 2 years later, 5 years later. But I guess we stumbled at this point in time and we moved forward.
Mahesh, you have gone into digital media for live classes. So will you briefly elaborate on that?
Yes. The kids generally find it very difficult to travel in the city of Mumbai. And generally, if you want to give tuitions to your child, you would say, okay, let us tell somebody in the neighborhood to do the job. But they would not give a professional approach and understanding in the right manner. So that's where we are using digital media, where the child is at home, it's a live internet video conferencing. The child can see the teacher can see the child. And all their friends are also in the same group at their respective houses. They can all chat with each other and the teacher can talk to them and can give live and rich experience. Like if it has to be, say, explaining how is the southwest winds blowing. Then actual southwest winds, can be shown to the child instead of showing on a blackboard. Same way, say for example, the planetary system, say for example, the First World War. Actually, the child can be shown that through the video internet conferencing. Now that helps the child to understand. We tried it this year for the 8th standard kids. Believe me, we had 150 on a trial basis. All parents were simply happy. And not only that, mothers who are housewives were standing behind and watching the whole thing. So when the child's exam was there, it was very easy for her to teach the child. She's telling, I also learned it and I know how to teach my child now. Otherwise, I would be finding it very difficult opening the books and teaching them.
Can you send your question through this SMS?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. So that's how it is. And then we have also loaded we have just started loaded our content, that is teachers, lectures on YouTube, free for all, MT Educate 2012. Next year it will be MT Educate 2013. where our teachers' lectures are there, our students can see. Say one day before the exam, if the child has forgotten, say, a chapter, then he can see that video on YouTube. And if he finds that he needs more of it, then he can buy it through Android tabs, and he can see it in his mobile, or he can see it on the tablet, whatever he has, maybe a Samsung tablet or maybe a Apple tablet. He can see it through that, as well as we have a 24-hour service one day before the exam, where all teachers are awake whole night, whole morning, because at times children go through psychological pressure. They don't know what to do tomorrow morning. They have a lot of, suicidal feelings that I'm scared. So our teachers are there, a 24-hour helpline online, where we teach the child. We had a very peculiar case last year where a child was from a slum and he used a public telephone to call the teacher. And he told, I don't know this whole chapter of chemistry. And the teacher started teaching. He told, I'm finished with my coins. What to do? The teacher told, wait where you are. I'm calling back from my line. And explained for 1 hour the whole concept. The child went happily home and more confident. So I think so we should teach our children to use technology productively and constructively. And we can do that. And that's where MT Educare has started its whole process. Thank you very much.
I think this is a very good example of using digital media and practical examples of, rather than this fad of social media these days. Shubha, you are a professional in this field. I think let me give you the last word. What do you think of these examples?
Great examples, especially Manish's example. You know, education has always been a very pioneering, sector as far as digital is concerned. So, one, because the mediums are already there and they're free. YouTube or Skype, etc. In fact, I was just, talking to a friend of mine who's involved last week, who's involved with a school in Bihar. He's an NRI. He's come back. So he started a school in some village in Bihar with his friends, and so it's a regular school. There are regular classes, but there are some specialists in different Indian cities, in Bombay, Delhi, etc. These are professionals. They're very, highly trained, top-level professionals. They also want to volunteer some time to this little village school. But they can't go there, right? So they do it through Skype. So it's a school where, 1 hour and a half in the afternoon, in the evening, when these, gentlemen come back from offices in the cities, they just, teach these kids on Skype, right? And education is, it innovates because it has to innovate. Like I heard somewhere, the biggest risk taker in India is the Indian farmer. He doesn't have a choice, right? So off the record, I've worked for large corporations and still continue to do so, but they seem to be extremely innovation unfriendly, right? So it's something that works for 50 years, 100 words. Why should I change, right?
The point I was trying to ask you is that today every enterprise, they want to get into the social media bandwagon, or they think by using digital media and social media they can enhance their business. And everybody immediately starts looking for a Facebook consultant or a social media consultant, and they start spending money on that. How valuable or useful it is, or whether it is not, or what will you suggest to especially enterprises like us who are small budget, who are always worried about the cost, whether it's value for money or not?
Yeah, like I was saying a little earlier, your objectives must be very defined. 99% or whatever, maybe I'm being uncharitable, but a majority of brands, enterprises on social media, I can easily make out their objectives are not defined. They're there because Facebook is there. Actually, they're helping Facebook, not their own brand. 10 million likes, what does it mean? I don't know. What does it mean to the bottom line? However, there are certain categories where digital, social media works a little better. You can't always sell something on Facebook. You can't, right? People go to Facebook to meet their friends, not to, buy your stuff, right? But at some point in the marketing funnel, again, if you listen, you can see, I can plug in this social media or that social media. So a little bit of research, a little bit of listening is good. So in the car automotive category, for example, I can give these free test rides for, when I'm launching a new car, I can give free test rides on Twitter. It's very easy, very cost effective to do that. But I can't sell cars on Twitter. So it depends on the category. My philosophy is please spend the minimum money and see, do something very small, like the example of the iPad menu, feedback that he was talking about. That's a fantastic case study. I'm very happy I heard it today, right? So do small things, but measure the effectiveness. If you're in a position to do that, you're successful. But you're a big brand, you want to get 10 million people on your page, you want to do do what Coca-Cola does, it doesn't work. Yeah. So I hope that...
I hope you have sent your questions. Do we have any questions? Do you have any questions which you have received?
Here the question.
Yes. Somebody has to send a mic there. Sorry? Doesn't work? The feedback is the SMS thing doesn't work. That's why people are not able to send SMS questions.
Yeah, I have a question for
Listen to the
Mr.
customer.
Shubho. Can you give some insights onto branding for services? As in, we are looking at many product companies or such kind of stuff branding in, say, like a hotel or some website. But a service company, can you give some insights how branding can be done, or what can be the usefulness for that?
Can you tell me the category? Is it possible to tell me which category of service?
Say a consumer service, like something like, say, Jeeves was there. Somebody was there from Jeeves company who was a consumer service company for some durable goods. Now they want, say, somebody has to build a brand for a third party brands, like you're servicing a, say, Dell laptop, but you want to become a brand for servicing of that laptop.
Okay,
something like that.
I think I've understood what you're saying. One is you cannot build a brand on social media or digital or whatever you call it. There are many touch points, including, how your receptionist answers your calls. That's one part of what makes up your brand. So you cannot jump into Facebook and create a brand. That's a myth. It does not happen. Maybe it happens for very small enterprises. Like there's this friend of mine in Delhi. He started a restaurant called Gunpowder, if you've heard of it. It was completely done on Facebook, and he's doing very well. But I don't know if he can scale up. I'm not sure, right? So, like I was saying, at the entry point, you can do a lot of listening for your brand, service brand. In some categories, that's why I was asking you what the particular category is, you can do last mile selling also. Selling not on Facebook, but you can drive traffic from Facebook or Twitter or Tumblr or whatever it is to your website, where there is an e-commerce gateway. In fact, all e-commerce, enterprises, they're very active on social media. The only reason they're on social media is to drive traffic to their website. There is no other reason. They're not there to get likes, as we call it. So it depends on your category, but service and social media, kind of walk hand in hand. Yeah.
Can I have a question?
Yes, sir.
This is Dr. Akash Rajpal. I'm the founder of EcoHealth. It tries to reach out to that population which is not getting health insurance, senior citizens and people who have diseases, etc. So what we do is we try and help them negotiate surgery costs, get them generic medicine. So we save them a lot of money. We don't charge the hospitals, so hospitals are also looking for patients, so they are also happy. So it's a interesting business model which we won an award from NASA also for social impact. The challenge is branding, because we are a startup, we don't have enough money. So what would be your key suggestion as we are growing over a period of time, as a long-term thing, not just an instant, we should keep in mind when we are building the brand? And what could be your key suggestion for touch points which you feel may work for this kind of a business?
That question is addressed to me?
Yes.
Okay, all right, yeah. So, I think it's thought leadership which sets you apart from other people, right? So that thought leadership is not for your Facebook audience, perhaps. Maybe it's to FMCG kind of audience, maybe. So your thought leadership, white papers or whatever you call it, has to go across to the influencers. whether it's policymakers, whether it's people in your sector, doctors, professors, etc. So then you have to, again, like I was saying, listen and figure out where they are. Like I know a lot of journalists in the particular category that you're talking about are on Twitter. They're highly active, which you can find out in 5 minutes. Just do a basic search, you can find out. So then maybe you can use Twitter, LinkedIn groups, Quora. Is anyone in this room on Quora? So Mumbai is far ahead of Delhi that way. So, Quora is a very thought leadership kind of, it's a Q&A kind of platform. It's not discussions. You ask a specific question, you get the best answers from experts. So it's a very fast way to build up thought leadership, and it's, of course, a, global kind of forum.
I think briefly in your case, you are in a very high quality service business. You should focus only on your customers and build customer advocacy with your existing customers and let them spread the word of your brand, because people who are benefiting from your service, they themselves should go and promote your service. I think that's the best thing which you can do. Use your own customers to promote your brand.
The challenge which we are facing right now is not a very, is because it is trying to reach out to that segment, because the demography is not easily available. Who is getting an insurance refused? Insurance company is not going to tell you. So it's a slow and steady model, and over a period of time we are learning. So we have innovated over a period of time. So having 64 million people on Facebook, influencer could help. Twitter is a nice suggestion. Quora is a nice suggestion. Such things is the kind of insights we are looking at, to reach out to these people, to make them aware that, okay, there is this service which now exists. So why are you paying 4 lakh rupees for an angioplasty when you should not be paying more than 2 lakh? That is at the end of the day what my ball game is. So I don't know whether I can be talking about that openly on a Facebook or making it look like a very commercial thing. So it takes a lot of thought process, as you said. But
yeah, I mean, you don't have to talk about it directly, but you can lead people into that conversation. At some point, that intervention should be made, the cost intervention. But the bigger thing is thought leadership, and like he was saying, successful stories, which people don't know.
One more question.
We have this whole wave of e-commerce, and what we see is that almost every website, almost every big e-commerce portal has a very similar front end. They're tying up with the same brands and so on and so forth. So if you're a new e-commerce portal, how would you differentiate yourself from the ones that already exist out there?
See, at a certain level, everyone is doing the same thing. I mean, Flipkart started with books, now they sell milk, I think. Right. So, I don't know. I mean, I have this friend who makes junk jewelry, and she has an e-commerce site and she's doing very well for that scale. Okay. So it depends on what your differentiator is. It's,
So is it the front end, as in like your products? Do you have to sort of innovate in your products which are sort of available in limited places, and that's how you differentiate?
I think you have to look at your front end from the point of view who's your customer and how they would like to use your service. Like the challenge is, can you make your website experience similar to a brick and mortar experience? I mean, I think that is the key challenge. And if you can make that happen, and that will again depend on, as you said, depending on the product and depending on who your customers are. And that's the kind of experience you have to give, whether it's look and feel or it's the overall shopping experience.
Just to add another point there is that I think we also need to answer, why do we want to be different? See, I think that is sort of answers good part of the question. And in terms of, yes, what is it that, and as he said, Shubha said, in terms of what is the differentiated service offering that you and me are giving? And based on that, does that get translated into the front? See, end of the day, front end is what the consumer sees. And that is the consumer facing one. So that's what the consumer sees. And what is that differentiating thing? Is that what the front end is also showing? So once there is a link between the two, then I guess the rest will really flow through.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We are short of time and we have been getting signals from there. Thank you for, thank you, Shubha.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mahesh. Thank you, Narayan. Thank you for making the time. Thank you.